To our second session, we have Karan Kukreja with us. He's an Oracle Certified Associate with about 5 years of experience as an apps DBA and co-DBA. He has worked with both service and product-based companies. Currently, he is working with a leading e-tailer organization, and today he'll be presenting the session on Oracle e-business suite, cloning and patching techniques. Karan, are you there now?
Yeah.
Okay, over to you, Karan.
Hello.
Yes, Karan, we can hear
Okay.
you.
Great. So first of all, thanks Deepak for giving me this opportunity. And well, a message to learn many new things today. So secondly, are you guys able to see my screen
Not yet, Karan, but
right now?
yeah.
Great. So I'll be first giving you. See, my name is Karan Kukreja, and I'm an Oracle Certified Associate with almost 5 years of experience as co. Agenda for today's session would be a recap from the previous session, which I had taken some time back, along with cloning and patch applications of a Oracle e-business suite. So first, let me go back to the basics. An e-business suite application is basically a three-tier system, which has a desktop tier, an application tier, and a database tier. Let me start with the database tier first. The database tier consists of your database. It could be on a single node, a RAC node, can support data guard, partitioning, and it also supports the 12c version of the Oracle database. The application tier consists of your web services, form services, and concurrent processing services. The third tier, which is the desktop tier, is what we use as supported browsers on which the application services can run perfectly fine. Other thing to note is that the operating system of the application tier should be same as the database tier, same OS, same version. And to get the complete list of recommended browsers for the Oracle e-business suite, there is a meta-link note which is mentioned on the top of the slide. This is a layout of the web services, which is the first component of the application tier. The web services are basically hosted on Apache. Just post the login page, you will get a page similar to what is there on the screen right now. The left side shows a list of responsibilities which have been assigned to an end user. By responsibility, I mean the set of rights. For example, in case of an HR will have rights only related to the HR profile. It will not have rights for the finance profile. On the right side is basically some workflow notifications which the end user will receive as per the workflow configuration. The second step is the form services. So once you are off the web services, you reach to the form services. Form services require a JRE version to be installed on your desktop machine. Without a proper compliant JRE version, forms will not open. Once you have the forms on the screen, you can submit all the DML requests to the system, which will ultimately be processed by the database. You can either select a single request or a request set. You could use a predefined request, or you can ask the developer to create a single request as per your demand. The third step is the concurrent services. Using the form page in the last slide, you can submit your concurrent requests. Looking at the screen right now, there are various options that you have. One is the request ID, wherein you can see the request that you have submitted. Then post submitting the request, a SQL is fired in the background, which gives a phase and a status of running normal. Once your request is completed, the phase and the status completes to completed normal. Once it is completed, there is an option to either view the output or view the log file. For an end user, what matters is the output to ensure that the tasks have been done. Other than that, users can also schedule their request if they want to run it in the off business hours, or as a part of the scheduling activity. For that, the phase and the status becomes pending scheduled. Now let me give you an overview of the architecture of the eBusiness suite. The eBusiness suite is a as I mentioned, three-tier architecture, out of which the two tiers are the database server and the application server. In the database server, you have the application apps_st and tech_st. Apps_st consists of all the Oracle database files which are of the format .dbf as a generic practice, and the tech stack, which is tech_st, consists of your Oracle home. Now this is the by default Oracle home that comes with the Oracle eBusiness suite 11.1.0.7. There are certain releases of R12 also which had a lower version of Oracle home around 10G, and the highest you can go is to 12C. That has been made compatible after application of certain patches. The other side, which is the other tier, is the application tier, which consists of the application stack, the tech stack, and the INST stack. In application stack, we have a directory called the Apple Top. The other directory is the Common Top. The Apple Top consists of all the product directories. By products, I mean the products that are to be used by the end users. It could be your fixed assets, your journal ledger, your HRMS, payroll. So these are the various products that are inside the Oracle eBusiness suite, and the files related to these products are residing in the Apple Top. The next one is the Common Top. Common Top, generally, as the name suggests, contains the files which are common for the all the application tops. Basically, it has all the HTML pages which are generic to all the application tops. The second part is the technology stack. It has two Oracle homes, 10.1.2 and 10.1.3. The 10.1.2 is basically comprising of all the forms and the reports, related configuration files, and the 10.1.3 home has Apache and JVM related log files and the configuration files. Apart from that, in near future, if you want to enable SOA gateway, then there will be certain patches which are supposed to be specially applied on the 10.1.3 home. The last is the INST top. This has been introduced recently in R12. This was not there in 11i. The INST top contains all the instance related configuration files. Other than that, all the requests that were run in the previous session of the concurrent services, the output and the log files are also stored in the INST top. Now, having said that, these are the steps which are required for any apps DBA to start and stop the services. Start and stop the services include starting the database as well as the application services. So to start the database, you could either use the standard commands of startup and shutdown and lnsrctl start. If you really want to go with the commands that are provided with the eBusiness suite, then we need to go to the Oracle home directory, apps util scripts sid_hostname. Inside that, addbctl start prod. Start is the command that you want to give, and prod is the name of the SID. This will start the database. To start the listener, addl ln is for listener, ctl start prod. This will start the prod listener. Now once the database is up and open and the listener is also up, you need to start the application. So to start the application, you need to go to the INST top, which was defined in the previous slide. INST top has all the start and stop scripts also. So go to INST top admin scripts directory and give AD start all. AD starts for application DBA. The short form of AD is application DBA, the long form. And start all is the command which is required to start all the services. This includes your Apache services, which I showed you in the first slide, the form services and the concurrent services. You need to provide an app's username and an app's password. By default, the username is apps, and it's good to always change the app's password and not keep the default one. To stop the services, we first need to stop the application and then stop the database by changing start with stop. Now I'll be starting with today's topic, which is cloning. Cloning simply means that you have a running ERP prod application and the database, and you have to create a replica of the same. Cloning comes from the end user or from the business, because they might have come across an issue where Oracle SR would have suggested some patch or some database level changes, which they always suggest to first try on a cloned instance. So it may happen that the previous clone that was provided to them was old enough and does not contain the affected data. So then comes the need of creating a clone. Clones are generally created on a separate server. They can be created on the same server too, but it is not advised and not practiced, because clones are generally treated as development or pre-prod or stage environments. So now I'll tell you the order that we are supposed to follow when we are supposed to create a clone of a ERP instance. First, we need to run a database pre-clone script. These scripts are before the clone activity starts. Then is the application pre-clone. The third one is the database clone, where the entire database is replicated. Then comes the database post-clone, which includes some activities which are to be done before the application is cloned and brought live. Then we need to clone the application, and the last one is the application post-clone. Each of these steps have their own significance and importance. We can we require the pre-clones of both database and the application only for the first run, for the first time. They may not be run again and again, but the other 4 steps are must to do in every cloning. So I'll first tell you what I mean by database pre-clone. This has to be first, this pre-clone command has to be run on the production database, because this will create certain directories and certain files which will aid us in doing the cloning successfully. This part is only for an EBiz database. We never do pre-clones in a non-EBiz database. So to run the pre-clone script, we need to go to the Oracle Home Apps Util Scripts directory. The SID_underscore hostname is another directory which is created specifically for that particular SID and hostname. Then run the command perl ad preclone dbtier. We have multiple options of providing different parameters to preclone. There are dbtier, dbtextstack, but the preferred is dbtier. It creates a clone directory inside which we have various library and driver files which would be used to run scripts after database is up, which are part of the cloning. So this is the sample output of a pre-clone script. It will prompt you for the app's password, and post that it will run. And as you can see in the screenshot, it is approximately 63% completed. So once it is 100% completed, you'll come across a directory which would be created in the apps util clone. If you see the screenshot, there is one line which says tech st1020 apps util /clone. So this clone directory is basically created once we run the pre-clone script. Moving to see, once the database pre-clone is done, our database is now ready to be cloned. We need to perform a similar activity on the application part, which consists of the various stops which I had shown before, the application tier server part. So we need to run a similar script on the application as well to make the application also clone ready. So to do that, general practice that we follow is we shut down the application and run the ad preclone utility. AD preclone utility is present in the common top admin scripts SID_hostname directory. The syntax is perl ad preclone apps tier. What we ran in the DB was DB tier. In application, we have to run apps tier. So this again creates a clone directory which holds the other useful scripts for cloning in the source node, and the location of this one is common top clone, where the clone directory is created. This is one screenshot of the pre-clone script. The pre-clone script, if you see here, it has created a clone directory, this part, in the common top clone bin. So this is the clone directory which is created after running the pre-clone. Now we have done the pre-clone activity. Now we should start with the cloning of the database. Now that was the source node, which was the prod. Now this is a new server, a new node, which will be addressed as the target node. Now I've given this title as the DB tier, because I mentioned that there are various parameters that we can provide with AD pre-clone and other AD utilities. So I'll be using DB tier in this slide, and the next slide I'll use the other one, DB tech stack. So the process remains the same. You need to copy the Oracle home, the data files, the control files, and redo log files. Then you need to execute the clone script from Oracle home apps util clone bin directory. This clone directory was created after running pre-clone. So pre-clone is a must. So once this clone script is executed, once you go to this directory, you need to execute the script perl adcfg clone dbtr. Now this script basically will create a XML file for you. XML file is generally called as the context file, which has all your configuration related information. It will register, relink, and configure your Oracle home, recreate all the control files, and configures the database for you. Now the practice for the DB tier is that DB tier, since the DB tier creates the control files as well, this is generally used when we are using a restoration from a cold backup. We do not need to use DB tier in case of a hot backup. And nowadays, not many people go with the DB tier, because generally most of the places people use hot backup. So in the next slide, I'll DB tech stack. So what we need to do is we need to copy the Oracle home only. Later, run the adcfg clone DB tech stack located in the same location. This will create your context file, register, relink, and configure the Oracle home. Nothing has been done with the database. So in this case, we need to manually clone a database using Arman backups. And since it does not make any changes in the control file, we can either restore the database before running this command or after running this command. As a general practice, I run this command first and then bring the database to avoid any confusion. And generally people use Arman hot backups, but since most of the guys here would be using Oracle 11G, I would strongly suggest that they should now start using the advanced features of 11G Arman, which is known as the duplicate database. The best part about the duplicate database is that you need not have a backup ready for creating a clone. You can create a clone on the fly. I've given a reference here of a URL which you can check later. Now this is a standard output of a database tech stack command, db tech stack, which we run. It will prompt you for see, now this has to be run on the instance where I'm cloning, which is the new server. So it will ask prompt for the host name of the new server. Then the next thing which it will prompt is the instance a RAC or not. Now since these are development boxes, not many people keep it on an RAC. So it's a single node, so you need to give a parameter n. The next thing it will prompt is for the database SID. The database SID, since it's a cloned one, we need to give a clone. Then the Oracle home base directory. The next thing it will prompt is for UTL file directory, which is generally user TMP. The number of data tops on which the target system will work. Now by data tops, we mean the various mount point locations where the data files will reside. So here in my case, it's 1, and that is by default. So in the next line, you can see that it has come to DB tier 12 clone, DB apps st data, which is the only data point where the data files will come. Then it will prompt for the Oracle home directory, which is DB tier clone 10 to 0. The next question it prompts is, do you want to preserve the display? Now the role of a display here is that not it doesn't play a major role here in the database node, but it has a significant role in the application node. Then the last question it prompts is target system port pool. I'll explain port pool in detail in the next coming slides, but what port pool does is it decides for the port on which the database will run. Moving to the now after this yeah, so once this is done, we have completed till the database. Now the database is open. Now there are certain things which are needed to be done on the database part before we bring in the application, which include dropping of certain workflow queues, and there are certain organizations specific changes which are handed over to the DBAs from the development team. We need to drop the workflow queues because in certain scenarios, once you clone the application, the workflow mailer starts and it starts sending mails, repetitive duplicate mails to the end users. So the end users may not know if it is coming from a cloned instance or from the production instance, which can actually cause havoc. So we should always ensure that the queue dropping is done if you are using workflow. Now let's start. Now we're done with the database part. So let us start cloning the application. So to clone the application, we need to bring the Apple top, the common top, and the tech top, which are the three major tops which are required for cloning. We need not bring in the INST top because once we start the clone, the INST top will be created automatically as per your instance configurations. To run the cloning script, we need to go to the common top clone bin directory, which was created as a part of pre-clone activity, and give the syntax perl adcfg clone appsteer. Now what appsteer would do is that it will create a context file, which is again an XML file of an ERP system and contains your instance specific configuration data. It will relink your Oracle homes 10.1.2 and 10.1.3, create the INST top, configure the Apple top, and it will also prompt you if you need to start your services once the script completes. This feature has the last one has come only in R12. It was not there in 11i. So this is how a sample output of an appsteer command looks. It will first ask you the hostname. The hostname could be same as your database hostname, or you can keep it on a different hostname. You could need to provide the SID. Then you need to provide the node name, the domain name, the base directory. Then it will prompt you for the Oracle home directory, the 10.1.2 Oracle home, then the 10.1.3 Oracle home, the location where you have copied the Apple top, the location where you have copied the common top, and the location where you want the INST top to be created. The rest of the things go by default, that you want to start the web services, the web application, batch processing on the same server. Last thing, it will ask you for display. Now the importance of display is there on the application node because up till 11i, reports used to run on a display server. So if the display was not set properly, your report output would never come correctly. So after this, once you run the appsteer command perl adcfg clone appsteer and it completes successfully, it will start your application. So there are certain things that you need to do just once your application is up before you hand it over to the end user. Those are defined under the application post clone slide. The first thing that we have to verify is that the application is up. If the adcfg clone script, which was run in the previous slide, had no issues, then your application would definitely be up without any issues. The other thing is to purge any workflow related information which is still there. The next is change the system and the app's password, because you might have to give this app's password to the developers or the development team. So if the password is not changed, any developer who has a bad intention can log into your prod and also make some changes. The next thing is to change the site name. The site name is generally visible on the form. So you do not want them to be visible as prod. You would always want it to look as, a dev or a cloned instance. The other thing is to change the color layout. Let me go back to the previous slide where I had used the default color. This is the default color, the blue and the gray color. Now you do not want the same color to be on the cloned instance, because this will again confuse the developers or the end users. So this should be unique. So you can change this color as well. You have pearl, you have red color, you have another 2 3 colors. I mean, you have many options to set a proper different color. So once this is done, then you need to reduce the number of concurrent managers. Concurrent managers are basically processes which cater to your request that you submit from the the form. Specifically OPP. OPP stands for Output Post Processor. Those, as the name suggests, these managers are those managers which take in the SQL data or the XML data and convert it to proper reports. These are heavy managers and they consume a significant amount of RAM on the system. So you may want to reduce this on a clone instance. Other than that, there would be certain organization specific changes that would be required to done, like masking certain data to the release. Now let me tell you what I mean by port pool. Standard DB port is 1521, and corresponding to that, the standard application port is 8000. So as a process, your URL becomes http hostname dot domain name colon 8000. But this is too generic, so generally organizations prefer to keep a different URL. So while cloning, if we provide a port pool of 5, that means the DB port will now be changed from 1521 to 1526. That's 1521 plus 5. That's a typing error that I've made. And the app port will change from 8000 to 8005. So now the URL of the application that you will be sharing with the developers or the end users would become hostname.domain colon 8005. The S in the HTTPS stands for the certificates if you have used and if your instance is SSL enabled. Now let me tell you the various other options that you have to run with ADCFG clone. We used the appsteer command, which is used to clone the Apple top, the Oracle home, and the common top. Here the Oracle home is 10.12 and 10.13 home. The other one is Apple top, which means Perl ADCFG clone Apple top. Once you give Apple top, it will be only cloning Apple top and the common top. It will not make any changes or configuration for the Oracle homes. And the third one is AT tech stack. When you run the Perl ADCFG clone AT tech stack, that would only clone the 10.12 and 10.13 home. It will not make any changes to the Apple and the common top. So basically, whenever you clone and you want to give an end-to-end delivery, you should always go for appsteer. Now similarly, for the database node, you have multiple options. One is the DB tier, which is required for all the database tier procedures, including creation of control file. The other one is database, which will create the control file and start the database. The third one and the most common one is the DB tech stack. It will only run the cloning process home, because it assumes that you will take care of the database using the hot backups, and this is the one which is most commonly used. Now the question comes, in my previous discussion I had mentioned that when do we need to exactly clone? When there is a hot issue and the end user, the business, the development, they all want you to provide them a replica of the database as soon as possible. So generally when the request of cloning comes, if you give them a TAT of 4 days or a 3-day turnaround time for the cloning, they won't agree and they would always request and beg you to give you an instance as soon as possible. So there are certain ways in which you can save some cloning time. The first one is to execute pre-clone on apps and DB only once. I mentioned this before, that you just need to run this once. The second is to automate all the post-clone steps using a shell script, so you need not log in again and again and make the changes. The third one is if your organization can spare some extra money and give you a proper different server with some physical standby licenses, you can keep a physical standby ready, and on need basis you could just open this physical standby, convert it into a normal open read write database, and then proceed with the other clone. You could save up to 2 or 3 days of your database cloning time. The other one is, if you only have a physical standby and no spare server, then you could use the method of snapshot standby, which was also mentioned by Mr. Karan in the previous session, to open up the database in read write mode, apply all the patches, do all the testing, and then roll it back to a physical standby. And the last one is that in case you cloned last week, but today they want to clone, not much changes other than the database related changes have been done, then you need not bring the application again. You can just clone the database, and this could save you some time for bringing the application and running the application specific scripts. The next action here is patching. Now with Bond as well, I'm sure applied a lot of O patches, but AD patch is something which we have to be very careful about. Let me tell you a difference between the AD patch and O patch. See, O patch can be easily rolled back because it's applied on the Oracle home. It can be rolled back command and it's done. Whereas an AD patch, it cannot be rolled back. The second one is that you cannot apply an O patch to run in parallel, whereas we have an option to run an AD patch in parallel. So if you have a strong server with numerous CPUs, you could actually speed up the pace of the patch application. And the O patch is applied on Oracle home, not specifically to the database Oracle home, but even on 10.12 and 10.13 homes of the application. Whereas the AD patch is applied or make changes to files only on the various tops inside the Apple top directory. Now I would explain here the various type of application patches that we have. It could be an individual one-off standalone is a mini pack. By mini pack, I mean a set of individual one-off patches. It could be 10, 15 individual patches which are clubbed together as a mini pack and provided to us. The third one is a family pack. It is another set of mini packs, multiple mini packs combined together to be applied as, which could some patches are. The last one is a chunk of many other packs which are many other family packs, and it is generally considered as an upgrade patch. So it's called a FCUP, which is Family Consolidated Upgrade Patch. Now, what are the components of a AD patch? One is the copy driver, which has the commands to change the Oracle application files. The copy driver starts with a C, then the patch number .dre. That is the copy driver file. The other one is the database driver. It has the commands which make the changes in the Oracle database objects, including tables, table definitions, PL/SQL codes, combining procedures, packages. The syntax for such a driver is D, then patch number .drv driver. It contains the commands to generate forms, reports, etc. These basically makes changes in the forms and the reports. It has the nomenclature as G, then the patch number .drv. Now these were the three different drivers which were provided us in long ago. Now all of these have been replaced by a unified driver, which is a superset of copy, database, and generate driver, and this is the only one which is being used these days. The nomenclature for these are U, then the patch number .drv. Now I'll show you the steps of applying a patch on the Oracle eBusiness Suite application. The first task is to bring down the application. We do not need to, and we should not need to stop the database, because ultimately all the changes would be recorded in the database. So we just need to bring down the application. Now, as a safe practice, it's always recommended to take account of the invalid objects that you have in your existing setup, because it may happen that certain patches may creep in some invalid objects. So you might need to take it back to the Oracle support team and discuss on those things. Third one is the maintenance mode. Now, maintenance mode is something which was introduced with 11.11i release, in which the application was made only available for the DBAs or the sysadmins to for patching activities, and the end users were not allowed to log in with any responsibility. This was created to provide good performance during the patching sessions. Now, this was optional in 11i. By optional, I mean is that even if you do not enable the maintenance mode, patch could be applied. Whereas in R12, it is important and mandatory to be under the maintenance mode before you apply the patch. So once you've done the first three steps, the next one is to apply the patch using the AD patch utility. Post that, it's always preferred and suggested to scan the log file of the patch for any errors or warnings that you have got to check with Oracle. Then recheck the invalid count, disable the maintenance mode, and just do a sanity check of the application at your data DBA front and provide it to the developer to test for the issue that they have been facing. Now, I've mentioned that it's strictly to be applied on dev always. The reason is that it's not possible to roll back a patch. So it might, I mean, there are certain ways you can do a partial rollback, but they are not, what Oracle will tell you, because Oracle will simply say to take a backup or use it on a recently cloned instance to be always on the safe side. Now, these are the commands to enable or disable the maintenance mode. You need to go to AD admin. You just need to type AD admin, and you'll be welcomed with a menu as on the screen. You need to click on the fifth option. It will prompt if you want to enable or disable. Likewise, of your choice, you can either enable it or disable it. This output will tell you what all is prompted while running an AD patch and how it goes. The top directory is U02 Apple MGR prod. So this is just a confirmation that Oracle takes that yes, you are applying the patch on the right Apple top. So generally it's yes, and it's by default. The other thing which it prompts is the batch size. The batch size is basically useful. One second, there is too much noise. Yeah. So the batch size is basically helpful in those patches and scripts which update the data in batches, make changes in the database. So if you give a default value of 1000, so basically 1000 rows would be updated in a single shot. By default, it gives you 1000, and that's what we generally go with. We do not make any changes. The next it will prompt you will be for your system password, your application password, and then it will ask you for the directory where the patch is residing. You should, as a safe practice, we always go to that directory and then run the AD patch utility. So it is prompting that the default directory is U02 Apple MGR prod patch 714567. The next thing it will prompt you is to provide the name of your auto patch driver file. Now, like I mentioned before, we had C, D, and G drivers, which are now replaced with U driver. So we just need to give U patchname.drv file. The next prompt comes if we really want to apply this patch. The answer is yes, and the number of parallel workers. Now you could give either six, six. I mean, this value has come up is calculated basically from the number of CPUs you have. So suppose you have 6 CPUs, it will prompt for 6. If you have 12, you have 16, 18 CPUs, it will give the default value of those parallel workers. Now you can either increase them or decrease them, but again I would always prefer to go with the default value. Now There are certain options which are available to you to run with the AD patch utility. The first one is apply equal to N. So if you give a syntax AD patch apply equal to N, so it will not apply the patch, it will create a log file which will have the list of changes and the files which would be changed. Generally, since you already have created a cloned instance and Oracle has provided a patch, we do not use this option apply equal to N. We generally apply the patch because it's a development instance and created only for testing of the patch. The second one is options equal to hot patch. Now what this does is, the benefit of this is that you do not need to bring down your application. You can just you don't even need to enable the maintenance mode. By giving options equal to hot patch, you can apply the patch on a running live system. I have used the option of options equal to hot patch only on small patches which are a few KBs, not with patches which are above 1 MB. The other option is options equal to no compile JSP. Certain patches compile the JSP pages of the eBusiness suite. So on a given scenario where you have say 20 or 30 odd patches and all are doing a JSP compile in the end, you may give options equal to no compile JSP for the first 19 and ultimately do the compile JSP in the last one. This may save you considerable time while applying a patch. The next option is no compile DB. At the end of the patch application, a utlrp script is always run and to compile any invalid object which would have been created during the patch application. So if you have 20 patches again and all have to be applied in a sequential order, you do not want all of them to run the utlrp, you can run it in the last. So options equal to no compile DB will also help you save some time. Now there are certain patches which also run the autoconfig in the end. Autoconfig is basically reads the XML context file and refreshes your system. So you do not want to run autoconfig on every end of every 20 patches. So you can give the options equal to no autoconfig, which will see autoconfig takes around 5 to 6 minutes or maybe 15 up to 15 minutes. So for each patch run, you can save up this much time by giving options equal to no autoconfig. And last patch, it will give you a very fancy menu of 7 options. These are generally preferred and used. Now you've started a patch and you and gave some 20 workers. So what all workers are working, what all have done their job. So there is another utility which is known as the ADCTRL utility. It's located in the AD top bin utility where all the other AD utilities reside, including AD patch, AD admin, AD splice, AD merge. So once you start the ADCTRL utility, it will give you a very fancy menu of 7 options. First one is to see the worker status. Now what a worker does is it picks up the files from the patch and applies it onto the database. So suppose you feel that worker has stopped working, so you could use the second option and tell the worker to restart a failed job. At any moment if you feel that the worker is not working properly or it is stuck, you could tell the worker to quit using the option 3. The fourth option would be to tell the worker or tell the manager that a worker has failed and it requires a restart of the job. So you could use the option 5, or if the worker acknowledges quit, then you could use the option 5. And now you've realized that the workers are stopped and you want to rerun them, you could give an option 6, which is restart a worker on the current machine. 7 is definitely the exit point. And there is another undocumented point, which is the 8th option. Now you realize that okay, out of 10, 3 workers have quit and they're not working. You want to kill those workers, so you could use the 8th option, and this will allow you to continue processing all the patch jobs by killing the AD workers which have failed. Now if you see all above the 7 options, there was not an option to kill, but this one will help you to kill a worker which has failed. Now you've done with the patch application. Now you need to verify if your patch has been applied successfully and has made an entry in the database. You could either query AD underscore bugs table or AD applied patches. There are two tables which we use to confirm if the patch has been applied or not. So in AD bugs, it consists of all the bugs that have been fixed by a particular patch, and it also has the information since the application was started in sequential orders. So this can have a lot of entries here. And the other one is in AD on a given scenario, a patch may resolve 100 patches, but these are the bugs in AD underscore bugs. Whereas since this table has only applied entries of the patches annually, patches would contain entry 1. Now the question comes, how do you reduce the patch time? Because again, there are issues where an end user or a developer may give you some 30-40 patches to apply, and they'll specifically request if that can be applied in a very short time. So if you really wish to reduce the patch time, you could use the option of no autoconfig, no compile JSP, and no compile DB, and you can run them in the end of the patch application. Another utility is another option rather is to merge certain patches together. The merging will not take less than 1 minute, and application time will reduce drastically because you need not run AD patch utility again and again. So there is a condition to how you can merge these patches. Patches can only be merged with their listed prerequisite patches, or if they are of similar type. If you have a language patch and you have another AD patch, you may or may not merge them. You need to get these things checked with either Oracle support, or you need to test it on dev before you merge them and proceed to prod. Also, individual patches, which are small patches, can be merged with mini packs and other maintenance releases. So I am done with my slides. So any questions? All right then.
Thanks a lot, Karan. It was a good session on EBiz cloning and patching techniques.
Thank you.
All right, guys. I'll just share my screen with the links which we have for our NIC chapter. If you have any queries, you can book. You can put your comments over there. If you have your Twitter account, you can tweet us as well, and all the session details and slides we gonna put there on our Google Plus page, and they'll be shared so you can access it from there as well. Moreover, our today webinar was on air on YouTube, so you can watch there. If you didn't watch it right now, then it will be recorded and you can watch from there as well. Once again, on the behalf of All India Oracle Users Group North India chapter, I would like to thank all the attendees who given their time and attended our sessions. I'll also like to thank both our speakers, Karan Kukreja and Karan Dodbal, for their sessions on new technologies of 12C and EBiz. Thanks everyone. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone.